back to beginning Unreal Engine 5. So today we're just going to take a look at the engine itself, the editor, I guess you could say, of Unreal Engine 5. And we're going to take a look at some of the important panels and stuff like that. Okay, so this is what happens when you open up your tutorial. So you're going to double click on that exe, and it's going to bring up that little box that we had before where it said like new project or whatever. But it's going to have your project in there, so just click on that, and it's going to open it up inside the editor here. Now what we're going to do is, you see here that we have an empty box. We have an empty, you know, sort of like an empty frame. And because we're in 2D mode, it's in 2D mode. Another thing you might want to check out is it in 3D mode. It's kind of cool. We'll go over those controls later. But the camera is already set for orthographic 2D mode. So, we're going to go over some of the basics here. Just go over like the different panes and what each thing is. And maybe take a look at maybe some objects and look at the different inspector panels. Alright, so the main scene here, this is the scene view. This is where you lay out all your levels and stuff like that. You do it in the scene view, and then you play it in the game view. You see here that there's a game tab. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll have it on the side. So what I just did was I just grabbed the game view. So here's the game view. There's nothing in the game view because it's an empty scene. So what you're going to do is just grab the game view and pull it down. And also with these little numbers, that's shadow play, drawing the frame rates. Just ignore that. You know, it's no big deal. Just, yes, you see them all over the place. Just ignore that. Okay. So now we have two panes here, and they're separated. So one's for the game and one's for the scene. So you obviously can't just click and move stuff in the game, and you'll see that in a second. Then up here we have our little manipulator tools. We got the Rect, transform. We got sort of like the movement, and I'm gonna go over the movement right now. So the movement in 2D is very, very simple. You just have dolly, which is the middle mouse wheel, forward and backward. And then you have left click is to like pan around, right click is to pan around, and holding down the center mouse wheel is pan around, because this is 2D mode. That's how it is. And I'll go over just really quickly 3D mode, even though we're not going to do 3D for a while. 3D mode, the scroll wheel front and back is to zoom in and out. Right click is to like kind of dolly around, and center mouse wheel is to pan, as well as the left mouse wheel. Sorry, the left click is to pan, as well as holding down the center mouse wheel. So that's the basics. You know, I mean, it's very simple to it's very similar to Maya. So, you know, this and that. Okay, so we're gonna go back to 2D mode. All right. And you also could do that with, these tools are for manipulating stuff inside the view. So we're going to go over that in a second. Alright, down here at the bottom we have our project panel. This is where we could have all our assets. So this is where you're going to store all your meshes and your scripts and stuff like that are going to be stored in there, as well as your console pane. Probably what I'm going to do, I haven't tried it yet. Okay, so we're going to go with that, because we don't need the asset panel to be all that big, because usually on most games, on most tutorials that we're going to do, the asset pane is not going to have very many assets in it. And plus we have subfolders to kind of organize stuff, but on most of our tutorials we probably won't have subfolders, because we just need to start, you know, just start going at it. So we'll just, you know, start dragging and dropping stuff in here. So that's how we access our assets in order to drag and drop them into the scene view and manipulate them in scene view. And console is basically how we could debug lines. So if something goes wrong in your code, and when your game is running, it will pop up on the console and it'll tell you what's going wrong. You'll also see debug lines and stuff like that in the console, and also stuff that you print in the code that I use as debug lines. Alright. Finally, the most important panel, I believe, is the inspector panel. So the inspector panel is basically where you see stuff similar to Maya and all other engines. You'll see stuff on the right-hand side of your of the panel where it explains the object that you're clicking on. In this case, I have the object called the main camera, which is this over here. I'll get over to this in a second. We have the transform, which is position, rotation, and scale. Each object has their own, their own looking inspector panel, as they have different values. For example, as you see here, camera. If I do a cube is not going to have a camera component. They call these components in Unity. And you can see some other values. You have the name and then the value, right? Oops. Clear flags, skybox, background, change the background color, and you see a change in the game view. Stuff like that. We'll get into that on a later date. But you can see that it has all different kinds of components that you could mess with. Finally, over here is the hierarchy panel. This is where you have all your objects. They call them objects, in this case like a camera or a character or like a 3D object or a 2D object, whatever, is going to be in your hierarchy. And then by clicking, you can name your stuff here. So for example, I can call this like cam. Now it's called cam. This is where all your objects are going to be listed. To click and manipulate on them and to jump through and focus on something if you lose it or whatnot is going to be here. So let's go ahead and take a look at another game object to see it add in the hierarchy as well as see it in the inspector panel. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, even though it's a 2D game, we're going to do a cube, and we're going to wait for it to pop up, and there you see our cube. Now, depending on where it is, which that's really strange how it centered itself. Okay, so basically what I did is I clicked on cube and then I 0, 0, 0, so now we could see it in the camera, because you see the camera is over top of the cube, so we're going to see it in our game mode. Now really quick, go ahead and look at in the inspector panel how things are different here. We have a box collider, so if it hits the block, it's gonna have some physics, so we can add different components, which I'll show you here. You see, you have a whole bunch of different components, physics, to add physics to it, which I haven't looked. As you know, Unity5 is relatively new. It was the 3rd of March. It came out 2015, so it's relatively new. So there is a couple new things in here that weren't in there before. So all different kinds of stuff that you could add to cubes to make them interact, like gravity, make them fall, stuff like that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go over these manipulators for objects in our scene view. So you see, obviously, as I pan around in the scene view, it doesn't affect the game view, and I can't actually click on the cube and do anything in the game view. The game view is only to run your game. Okay. So first I had the little pan thing. It won't let me manipulate the cube. It won't even let me select it. I would have to select it in the hierarchy view. Then we have the move tool. In the move tool, I believe you could select stuff with it. Yes, as you see, I could select stuff with it as long as they're not on top of each other. So with the move tool, we have these little arrows, and you'll see in 3D mode that they have oopsies. That they have different different arrows that lock it to the axis, or you could click on the center and move it around, willy-nilly, obviously not locked to any axis. So this is locked to, in this case, you see, and watch up here in the transform, you'll see it change in the transform. So here is our x-axis lock, here should be our z-axis lock, and then this is our y-axis lock. It'll also tell you here, you see the little manipulator gizmo here, you got Y, Z, X, and then obviously negative Z, negative X, negative Y. And then you also see our camera there, which it has the perspective box on it. Okay, so let's go back to 2D. Oh, actually we're going to need to be in 3D mode, and then we'll go back to see it in 2D mode. Next manipulator tool is the rotation tool. As you can see, it rotates the box, and it looks really funky in 2D because there's not really any shadows, so you can't really tell that it's kind of rotating. So that's rotating the box, and you see here that it also has the same axes, so you're going to have to mess with to figure out which one's which. The yellow one is usually not locked to any axis. It's red. It's red, this one, and green are the ones that lock it to an axis. So here we see we have the Z-axis rotation. We have, this is like over the top axis rotation, so you need multiple. And here I'm clicking in the center so I could make it, not locked to any axis. So we already got blue. Red is still locked to one axis, and then green. Alright, so you get the idea there. Then we got the scale tool. Also, as you obviously know, as you saw, I could enter in standard values. So I could just, instead of rotating, I could just enter in standard values here. And you could, so I'm going to hit 0, and then if you hit tab, you go to the next entry. Oops. Okay. So I just 1, 1, 1 scale. Now we're going to check out the scale tool. So that's this tool here. And you see if we hit it in the center, it scales in aspect ratio, in a ratio 1, 1, 1. So you have 1.7, 1.7, 1.7, they're all the same. And then also you have the specific axes locked. This is the Z-axis, the X-axis, and the Y-axis. And then the Rect transform tool is a little bit different. That's for usually GUI stuff that we're going to use in the game engine. Alright. And also the coolest thing is if you're not into going and clicking on stuff, there are hotkeys for this. So if you look here, you'll see me cycle through, and I'll tell you which key I'm pressing. Q is for the Q on your keyboard is for the pan. See, I can't select anything. It's just a pan around. W is for the movement tool. E is for the rotation tool. R is for the scale tool. And in this case, what key is this? This is T. T is for the Rect transform tool. And if you've gone through my Maya tutorial, or you're similar with Maya, you know that these are exactly the same keys that they are in Maya, except for, of course, Rect transform tool is a Unity specific. Okay. Anything else? We have these stuff we're not going to go over. We have the play, pause, and then I never actually use this one. It's like step forward a frame or something. So yeah, just play, pause are the main things that you have to worry about. And then we have other stuff that we're going to go over as well. So this is just kind of a nitty-gritty down into the engine. We're definitely going to be making most of our stuff using just primitive objects. And as you saw, there are a lot of objects in here. Oops. A lot of 3D objects that you can manipulate and just add textures to, standard 2D sprite. 2D sprites is just an image in 2D. Okay, so that's mainly what I wanted to go over in this tutorial, as we're going to go into other things in the next tutorial. Stuff like, gravity and, well, I'm saying this early. I'm just kind of giving you some inspiration on further tutorials. Make some like a side scroller or something like that, and just go over some of the components to get you guys more used to the game engine as well as scripting. That reminds me, let me show you guys really quickly what it looks like to script, what the editor is. So I'm going to show you guys Monodevelop really quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to create. I just right clicked, create. I'm just going to do C#. Then basically what's going to happen is you see it over here in the, and this is in the assets folder. You're going to see it over here talking about it in just a little inspector view. What you're going to do, double click it, double left click, and it's going to open in Monodevelop. Monodevelop is the script editor. It's going to work for your JavaScript, C#, Boo, whatever you want. As you see, as we open it up, here is our C# code. Of course, you should be familiar with this kind of setup code. C# is very similar to Java and C++, kind of cross combination. We're definitely going to be using this a lot, and also some projects with JavaScript possibly, maybe under a different tutorial name. Yeah, so that's basically all I wanted to go over. We're going to be using this a lot here very soon, as this is the only way to really manipulate things inside the game engine. You know, have you be able to control stuff with your keyboard and mouse and stuff like that. Also, another thing that we're going to be get very used to is the online documentation on Unity's website, because you basically can't do anything with Unity unless you go and look in the documentation. Usually it would be like scripting for 2-3 minutes, looking in the documentation for 6 to figure out how to do the scripting that it took you 3 minutes to do. Alright, so it's going to be a very fun tutorial. We're going to do a lot of different things here. We're going to start out with 2D and work our way up, and but the scripting works exactly the same in 2D as 3D, so it's a lot easier to work with stuff, and you'll definitely get a handle of it very quickly. Alright, so this has been Steven from LegitTechTutorials. I thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe for more videos like it in this series and other series as well. I haven't really found a book that I'm going to use for this series yet. I might find one, I don't know, probably just off the top of my head. And then maybe I'll find one if you guys want to get some further information from people that, you know, took all the time to write it down in a book. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Peace.